Hi, this is Jaya. In this video, we shall see the summary of Shakespeare in a Changing World, an essay written by Arnold Kettle. Arnold Kettle was born in 1916 and he was a British Marxist critic. And he was the first professor of literature in the Open University in UK. His famous works are Introduction to English Novel, Shakespeare in a Changing World, Literature and Liberation. He died in 1986. In this book, Shakespeare in a Changing World, Arnold has collected essays and they are totally 12 essays. But the book was published after his death in 1964 by his friends Lawrence and Wishart. And these essays examine some of the major plays of Shakespeare from the Marxist point of view. These essays discuss the human relationships, politics, history, realism, love and society, spirit of capitalism shown in Shakespeare's plays. According to Marxism, one class has always exploited another class. For example, in the feudal period, the feudal lords exploited the peasants, and in the industrial age, the capitalist class known as the bourgeois exploited the industrial working class known as the proletariats. And Arnold in his introductory essay states the need for a historical context to read Shakespeare. He believes that a historical context will bring to light the social, political and economic tensions that created the works of Shakespeare. And he feels that Shakespeare has represented his age completely. And he also examines the popularity Shakespeare works have enjoyed even after Shakespeare. And he says this is because of Shakespeare's humanism. And he says that though Shakespeare was patronized by the bourgeois and aristocrats, his writings were democratic. And he says that Shakespeare was not in the forefront in the 17th century, was not in the forefront of any of the theoretical movements in the 17th century. But anyway, people continued reading Shakespeare. And later on in the 19th century, Shakespeare had a great influence on the Chartist movement. And he also introduces the authors who have contributed the essays in this book. And he says that some of the authors are Marxist while others are not Marxist. But even those who are not Marxist feel that Shakespeare had written with a Marxist thinking. And he says that when you are analyzing these essays, you have to think about it in a critical and historical way, because both are needed to analyze Shakespeare's plays. Because a literary historian, if he ignores criticism, then he will have no guide as to what he has to include in his history. At the same time, if a critic is going to ignore history, then he will not have any basis for his judgments. And Kettle concludes by saying that all these writers have examined Shakespeare's plays objectively and scientifically, but at the same time, the impact of literature is always personal and complex. Therefore, literary judgments cannot be avoided. And he ends by saying that Shakespeare works have an impact on people's lives. And that is why Shakespeare has always been interpreted in different time in different ways. Like in his own time, Shakespeare was actually praised for the skill with words and the arrangement of the scenes. But later in Dryden and Pope's time, Shakespeare was criticized for his use of puns, the baseness of his humor, and the unsophisticated expression and emotion. And there were many writers who rewrote his plays to refine the language and the sentiment so that it would suit the taste of that particular age. But later on in the Romantic age, writers like Coleridge, Lamb and Hazlitt and other critics recognized the genius of Shakespeare and they revived the original form of his plays. And A.C. Bradley, who is one of the earliest critics of Shakespeare, has examined Shakespeare's tragic characters and the impact on the play and the audience. And after the World Wars, the psychoanalytic studies of characters, which was influenced by Freud, were used to analyze Shakespeare plays. And later on, modern and postmodern theories were also used to study his characters and the relationship between the characters. With the arrival of Marxist criticism, the studies brought about the issues of class struggle, political power mongering, oppression as a subject matter of Shakespeare plays, and the knowledge of the socio-political economic milieu of the 16th century became essential in the historical approach to Shakespeare criticism. And these essays put forth the basic features of historical Marxist critical theory to better understand the attitude of the writers in the book. And the focus in the essays is not the traditional examination of characters but an analysis of the socio-cultural forces that actually shaped Shakespeare's thinking and how his works influenced the socio-cultural life of the people of his age. And the play is also analyzed critically too to determine how and why the use of a particular character's language and plot movement reflected the age and influenced it. And this shows the greatness of Shakespeare and why Shakespeare is read even today. This is a beautiful essay, and if you have anything more to add on to what I've said, please write it in the comment box. Like the video, share it with your friends, and if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe. Thank you.